Hello, I'm Belle, and this is the third and final session of my three-part presentations. Again, I want to thank Dr. Abraham, Director of the Doctoral Scholars Program, for permitting me the opportunity to present these sessions. Previously, I mentioned that for those of you who are familiar with the Institute, there has been a session scheduled for a number of years titled A Conversation with the Elders. This is where seasoned faculty and administrators that have had years of experience in higher education respond to questions from scholars. And the hope is that these seasoned individuals with many years of outstanding experiences in higher education can share their knowledge with the emerging scholars like you, and could be a value-added experience for them. Now, my presentation in this format is not a dialogue, but I welcome your comments about these sessions. Good, bad, or indifferent, all are welcome. And like you, I continue to learn. So on the screen, you can see my email where you can contact me, bob.bell@sreb.org. Again, I welcome your comments. Now, in full disclosure, let me say that I'm not a medical doctor, a physician, a scientist. My major at the doctoral level was counselor education. I'm not sharing or prescribing any medical advice. You know the sources to seek that kind of information. However, as a counselor educator, I do feel confident in sharing some perspectives on how people can use certain techniques to cope with the different situations they face. Many years ago, while playing basketball one Friday evening, I ruptured my Achilles tendon in my left leg. The next day, Saturday afternoon around 2 o'clock, I was in surgery to have it repaired. After surgery, my left leg was in a hard cast from my toes to the upper part of my thigh. I was in that position for 6 weeks. When the cast was removed from my left leg, my leg had atrophied to half its size from lack of use. On the other hand, my right leg and calf had gotten larger and the muscle tone more defined. Even my arms and my forearms had increased in size and had much more muscle definition because of their extended use on my crutches. My point is that my body had compensated because of the changes it sensed in the use or lack of use in my legs. My body had learned how to cope in a different way than before my injury. So my sharing these sessions with you is to illustrate how I am trying to cope under the circumstances that we are faced with today. Now, in my first session, I titled A Call to the Ancestors, and the second session was Family Matters. This final session is titled Survive and Move On. Survive and move on. Some of you may have noticed that here in my office area at my home, on the wall directly behind me, are some pictures of my athletic days in college. On the wall to my right are some memorabilia from some personalities in the NBA. Very early on, when I started my career as a teacher, I also was a high school basketball and track coach. And over the years, I enjoy various sports at specifically the collegiate and professional levels. Now, sheltering at home, I have found myself watching recorded YouTube shows on various basketball tournaments, baseball playoff games, and track and field events from previous Olympics. In tournaments, there is a practice and procedure of teams and individuals in track and field that in order to play for a championship, the athletes or the team must compete in what are called preliminary competitions or rounds. In track and field, you compete in heats. These are some of the batons that I used to use when I was coaching track. So in track and field, you compete in heats where you must place first or second in your heat in order to move on to the next round. If you don't place first or second, you must then have the third best time or distance in order to move to the next round. In other sports like baseball, basketball, and soccer, you may have to win the best 2 out of 3 games or the best 4 out of 7 games. And in some sports, like football, your only option is to win 1 game. If you lose that game, you're out of the competition. You're out of the tournament. So hence the phrase that is used, win or go home. Athletes in these tournaments have trained for years, and they compete very hard. The pressure to win is enormous. And they understand that if they lose, they go home. Their season is over. So when I look at the situation we were faced with this virus, it occurred to me that if we're going to win, and by win I mean overcome this virus, then we are going to have to compete at a higher level even than mere athletes. Now you might ask, well, what do you mean at a higher level? This is what I mean. If an athlete or a team loses, they go home. This virus is not a game. If we lose this war with this virus, it places our very lives, the lives of our families, friends and colleagues, even our existence at stake. With this virus, there is no second or third place. In the athletic world, the phrase that is used a lot at tournament time is compete or play the game, survive, and move on. Compete, play the game, survive, and move on. Now, there are very few of you out there that are watching me that I know personally. However, being in this higher education and graduate school arena for a very long time, I know what it takes to be where you are in your educational career. And this gives me an indication, and I would also say a comfort level, that you have what it takes to meet this challenge. First of all, you took the appropriate coursework in high school and you did the work to graduate. You survived and you moved on. Secondly, you then did the work at the undergraduate level to put you in a position to be accepted into graduate school. You survived and you moved on. Third, some of you are just beginning, some are approaching or at the midpoint Others are near the end of your graduate study. Each semester, you're surviving and moving on. I know that along this journey, it has not been easy for many of you, but you persisted, you have competed, you have survived, and you've moved on. You have done or are in the process on doing what your ancestors did, as I pointed out to you in my previous sessions. They survived life and they moved on. It also occurs to me that as you move on, some of you are involved or will be involved in working in laboratories that will be confronting and dealing with solutions to this and other diseases that will challenge mankind in the future. Some of you may be involved in the shaping of public policy regarding public health in our communities. Some of you will be involved in helping to develop new and different protocols and helping our citizens cope with adapting to an adoption of the changing new normal behaviors that will surely emerge. Some of you will be involved in helping to reshape the delivery of education from K through graduate school. I am hopeful that when you are in these positions, that you will take up the challenge to survive and to move on. Also, don't forget, there may be a child, a cousin, a nephew, a niece, or someone that are or will be observing you. They may not say anything, but they are watching you to see what you do and how you do it. They may be inspired by what you do, how you carry out yourself, how you behave. And you may not even be aware of the fact that they are watching you. I'm reminded that when I worked on a college campus some years ago, a student came into my office. He had transferred from a community college and he was a junior. He said, "Dr. Belle, I've been watching you and I want to be a college professor one day. You have been there. And I would like to talk with you from time to time to seek your advice on how to reach my goal." We would meet very often and talk, and after graduating, he survived and moved on, working on a master's degree. He graduated, he survived, he moved on. He was admitted to a PhD program. He was the only African American student in his department. He put in the work and he graduated. He survived and moved on. He completed a year of internship for certification required in his discipline. He survived and he moved on. And later, he was hired at the same institution where he had received his undergraduate degree. He is now an associate professor with tenure. He competed, he survived, and he moved on. You know, in today's world, young kids look up to entertainers as heroes. You know, by the way, athletes are entertainers as well. I have been amazed, however, with the courage, the discipline and the humanity that our first responders have shown during this crisis. In the hospitals, the emergency rooms, the EMT responders, police, firemen, etc., to me, they are head and shoulders above any exploits of any entertainer, including athletes. They're the ones who are the heroes. Yeah. Athletes compete for recognition. They compete for trophies. Athletes compete for watches, for medals. This medal I won for first place in South Jersey Group 4 state championships in my senior year in high school. I was a high jumper. First place. However, over time, trophies and medals tarnish. Blue ribbons fade. However, they represent the fact that one time one competed and one survived. Again, I repeat, I do not know you personally. But where you are in your career development is evidence enough for me that you have what it takes to cope with and compete at the highest level, especially with this circumstance that we are faced with today. If you do so, I suggest that one day someone will look back and view you as an ancestor that survived. And you will be one of those ancestors that they will call upon, because they recognize, yes, that family does matter. And you are a family member, you competed, you survived, you moved on. And one day you might be viewed as a hero in your family. So let me close and remind you of where I started. When Sin-Q on the Amistad is asked the question, what are we to do? Sin-Q responded and saying, we won't be going in there alone. I mean my ancestors. I will call into the past, far back to the beginning of time, and beg them to come and help me at the judgment. I will reach back and draw them into me. They must come. For at this moment, I am the whole reason they have existed at all. A call to the ancestors. Embrace the concept that family matters. Survive and move on in this moment in time with what we are confronting. I just ask you, think about it. Thank you. I wish you all the best. And I will paraphrase the words of the former President Barack Obama after giving his last speech at the National Press Club banquet. He said, Obama out. Belle, out. Be safe.